Okay, this is a reaction video. This is another reaction video from Feely from Germany. Is there still a divide between East and West Germany? Now, if you grew up like I did, okay, my first memories of when you talk about Europe was that there was an East Germany and there was a West Germany. And West Germany was good, East Germany was bad. And you just lived with it. It was part of the Cold War era that we lived in. And if you look at some of the popular culture around that time frame, people talking about nuclear war, the Soviet Union versus the United States. Soviet Union obviously doesn't exist anymore, but it was it was something that you kind of lived with and accepted. And then in 1989, I think it was November '89, all of a sudden the wall comes down. A couple years later after that, the Soviet Union collapsed, and then Germany was one whole country again. And from an Eastern perspective, from a Western perspective, it was okay. We just got a grand new country. We can go, but from East, it had to be one of the biggest changes in your life, because you're growing up in a communist system, and all of a sudden you're in a free market capitalist system. Everybody's free, and for a lot of people, they thought that was the end. Everything. Peace was, obviously that didn't happen, but let's take a look. This is Feely from Germany. Is there still a divide between East and West Germany?
It's been over 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall and the reunification of East and West Germany. And
there's actually a part of the Berlin Wall in Columbus, Ohio, where I live, and I can go and see it every time I want to. And there's also one at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Museum out in California, which I've seen as well.
Is Germany really a unified country today? Hallo, Servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feely. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. I have some great news. As you guys might know, I had to close down my shop, feelyfromgermany.com, after the rebranding issues in October. But it's finally back up just in time for Christmas. Some of the products were updated.
Good to know. Go to feelyfromgermany.com and please click like, share, and subscribe for her as well as Scott Dova's Interesting World, but that's good to know.
Just like some of the other questions you guys had for me, this is a huge topic, and there's absolutely no way to include everything there is to say about it in just one video. I'll try to let you in on what the common knowledge is among Germans regarding this topic, but if you're interested in all the numbers and background knowledge, there are tons of documentaries, books, and other great resources.
Yeah, there are a lot of great research about Berlin and the Berlin Wall. Like I said, I've been to Berlin before. I stayed in the West when I was in Germany back in 2006. We stayed in Frankfurt, but we did visit Berlin, and Berlin's a hell of a town. It's a great town. I actually really enjoyed Berlin, and hope to go back there sometime this year.
Resources out there that dive a lot deeper into the topic, so I'll be sure to put some links in the info box for you guys. So, after Germany had been divided into two different countries for over 40 years, the Bundesrepublik Deutschland, BRD, Federal Republic of Germany, also referred to as West Germany, and the DDR, Deutsche Demokratische Republik, in English, the German Democratic Republic, GDR.
And she mentioned things about videos. I know about the East Berlin. I remember seeing back in the 80s, they showed people looking over the wall at each other, East and West, and there was a guy from the East was waving at the people from the West. And the Stasi showed up, which was the East German secret police. I think that's what they were called, the Stasi. And he came back and was a little bit more reserved. But there was a whole lot of that going on.
Or also referred to as East Germany, the country was finally reunited in the year 1990 after the Berlin Wall had fallen the previous year in 1989. So the German history of the 20th century wasn't just influenced by two world wars that we were majorly involved in, or going from a monarchy to a democracy to a dictatorship within less than 20 years. It stayed complicated even after the end of World War II, when Germany was divided.
And also, keep in mind when you talk about Germany and the first half of the 20th century, we all know, if you knew anything about what you were taught in history class, World War I ended, the Treaty of Versailles, and Germany took the brunt of it, and that caused World War II. We all know about Hitler. We all know about what happened there. We all know about the Holocaust. But Germany paid a very, very high price for World War II. And and this is something that you just understood growing up. And all of a sudden, it just changed. It was just absolutely, it just changed. I'll never forget it, because all of a sudden, you have an East and West Germany. Next thing you know, you have a unified Germany. We've had a unified Germany ever since. And look, I loved going to Germany. I'd love to go back again. It is absolutely a fantastic country.
Divided into 4 occupation zones. A British one, a French one, an American one, and a Russian one. While the Western occupation zones all became the Federal Republic of Germany in 1949, the country that still exists today, the Russians had a different plan for their zone and founded a socialist state. Some of the main things to know about the GDR, and this is a little simplified, are that they had a one-party system, with the governing party being the SED. They didn't have free elections. They had a planned economy instead of a capitalist system with a free market. So people often had to wait 10 years or even longer to get a car, for example. And there was only one model available throughout the whole country, the Trabant.
And there are videos about that, about what life was like in East Berlin, where West Berlin was a free market capitalist society, and everybody was, I don't want to say everybody was all happy, all peaches and cream, but everything was moving forward. It was like moving towards the 21st century. But if you looked at East Germany, it was like a place that was stuck in time. And the Trabant was a car you had to wait, 10, 15 years to get one. And it was just absolutely a completely different animal from East and West Germany, and East and West Berlin as well.
There were more and more restrictions for the citizens. They were hardly allowed to travel, especially not to Western countries. The Berlin Wall was erected, as well as fences along the border, and the Ministry of State Security, the Stasi, Staatssicherheit, arrested and blackmailed everyone who talked badly about the system or who pursued illegal activities, such as...
Yeah, you did. Now, there's a lot of stories about people who escaped East Germany, even when the wall was built, to get it. There's a great video on YouTube. I'll see if I can find it and put the link in the description below if I can find it. It has a great story about the history of the wall and of these 3 brothers. One of them and how they managed to get from east to west. I don't know about a lot of people going from west to east. I don't know if that even happened, but there's a east to west was very prevalent. And that's the reason for the wall.
Watching West German TV or listening to West German radio, where they would play English-speaking music from the US or the UK, for example, or, of course, smuggling Western items into the country or planning to flee into the West. A lot of people got pressured into becoming spies for the Stasi and had to spy on their own friends and family. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend watching the Oscar-winning movie Das Leben der Anderen, The Lives of Others, that deals with this exact topic. Long story short, for 4 decades, the people in the GDR lived in a completely different world than the people in West Germany. They had different products, different media, very limited freedom, and a lot of them couldn't even trust the people around them.
And that's also where it comes to what I was saying about, could you imagine if you were living in the East and living under that kind? Now, you probably would have gotten used to it, okay, just understood it. I can't sit there and say that everybody from the East yearned to go to the West, but and then all of a sudden, poof, it changes. All of a sudden you've gone from very restrictive to a very open and free life. I can't imagine for the people from the West, because everybody ever saw it on YouTube, or you see the wall collapse in the news reports and people going from one side to the other. You didn't see a lot of people in my eyes going from west to east. You saw more people going from east to west.
Obviously, it was a big change when the GDR was dissolved and included into West Germany. Since we have a federal system in Germany with different states, Bundesländer, the former GDR region is also often referred to as Neue Bundesländer, the new states. There are 5 of them that were added to the existing 11 states in West Germany. From the beginning, there were big efforts to integrate the new states as quickly and as well as possible, which included German citizens paying an additional tax after 1991, the so-called Solidary Tax, Solidaritätszuschlag, or colloquially Soli.
There's always a tax, isn't there?
In German. But the real question is, was the integration successful? Are there still noticeable differences between East and West Germany today, over 30 years after the reunification?
Now, I said I've been to Berlin. I've gone through East Germany. Okay, I'm not going to figure it out in 3 hours in Berlin, and then compare it to where I was. Like I said, the places that I went to in Germany were, I stayed in Frankfurt, went to Gelsenkirchen, went to Cologne, went to Cologne, and to Kaiserslautern. Okay, so those are the only places that in Berlin, obviously. But I can't really give you an analogy. I do know. I mean, one of the things I did see in Berlin was I did see the Holocaust Museum. I wasn't able to go there. I'll hope to do that. I did see that there were still signs registering the people who died at the Berlin Wall. I was at the Brandenburg Gate. I didn't realize until I watched the video after I was there that the Brandenburg Gate was one of the dividing lines of the wall.
The answer is yes. We've definitely come a long way, and it's not something that's super obvious or that people talk about non-stop, but living in Germany, you'll definitely notice that people still talk about the East, or the new states, or the former GDR in regards to the economy, politics, and other societal topics. One thing that the new states have been struggling with is keeping people around. Ever since the reunification, especially young, educated people have moved away to the Western states. It has gotten better now.
And that's actually what happened when East and West Berlin, a lot of that's part of the reason why the wall was built. There were a lot of the artists, the people, the young people were going from east to west because they had more freedom.
There are actually more people moving to the east than moving away right now, but the population in those regions is still declining, partly because there aren't a lot of potential parents around, and prognosis say that it'll keep declining more so than in Western Germany. The last time the population was this low in that area was actually in 1905. As a result, you can find actual ghost towns in those regions, and with people consistently moving away for such a long time, it hasn't been a very attractive area for businesses either. Some bigger cities in the new states, such as Leipzig, for example, have been growing a lot though, so that's a pretty positive
They also have a pretty good football club, Leipzig.
development. Partly going back to what I just said, the fact that people and companies were leaving, the economic situation was pretty rough in the new states right after the reunification. About 80% of the people had to find a new job, for example. And
again, that comes down to what I said before. You're living in a communist/socialist, whatever you want to call it, state, and all of a sudden you're in a free market economy and you have to get a new job. Okay, and all of a sudden your life is completely outrooted. If you were born in 1950 in East Berlin or in East Germany, and all of a sudden you've lived 40 years of your life one way, and then all of a sudden, poof, it's changed. That had to be an absolutely massive, massive change. I mean, yes, I'm free. Yes, I can say what I want. Yes, I can do all these things. Assuming that was all granted, but at the same token, now I've got to find a job. Now I've got to, all these other things have just piled onto me, and it probably happened just like, as far as they're concerned, just like that.
even today, you'll still find a difference in salaries, among other things. In the new states, the average pay is about 20% below the average pay in the West. At the same time, living costs are a little bit lower in the East, but it's not nearly enough to even out in the end. Another pretty obvious divide between West and East that we've been talking about a lot these past few years in Germany has to do with politics. Especially the support of the far right-wing party AfD, the Alternative for Germany, is significantly higher in those regions compared to the rest of the country. While in the old states...
And while I don't get into a whole lot of politics on my channel, I've done a little bit, but not a whole lot, the far right, harkens back, what makes people think about the Nazi party, okay? Even though the Nazis were not necessarily right-wingers or left-wingers, they were kind of a hybrid of each other, but still, That's what people start thinking about whenever you hear something like that.
The most votes usually go to the CDU-CSU, the Christian Conservatives, and the SPD, the Social Democrats, followed by the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, FDP usually. The AfD usually comes in second place in all of the new states, and during this year's federal election, it even came in first place in 2 of those states, in Saxony and Thuringia. Plus, the left party, Die Linke, is stronger in the east as well. Being a former socialist country, it seems to make sense that the left party would have more support there. The AfD, on the other hand, is basically on the exact opposite side of the political spectrum, and there are different explanations as to why they find so many supporters in the east. People from there may have been feeling pretty neglected within Germany. They didn't grow up with immigration, especially not from Turkey and Arabic countries, and are therefore less open to immigration, and they also have a lack of trust in democratic institutions. And lining up with this political divide, you'll see a clear difference with other politically motivated topics as well, such as...
That is probably one of the big things about, that I hadn't really thought a whole lot about, even though, like I said, I don't deal with politics a whole lot on this channel. But the political, how do you feel about this? All of a sudden, like I said, you're secluded. Your opinion, you can't share your opinions. All of a sudden, people start moving in. People start going in there, and everything changes. If you're in the East, everything rapidly changes. In the West, not so much, but in the East, everything rapidly changes.
A lower COVID vaccination rate in the new states, for example. Socially, some noteworthy differences are that fewer people in the new states are religious, which goes back to the Communist Party in the GDR promoting state atheism. Most citizens left the church in the GDR. And the rate of working women is higher in the East, the gender pay gap is much smaller, and you can find way more women in leading positions in the East, which goes back to the fact that women were encouraged to work in the GDR and were provided with additional childcare services. Last but not least, let's talk about cultural differences. That's a pretty wide realm and really different from
Again, that's probably the big thing, is the cultural differences. I mean, we can talk about the politics, we can talk about lifestyle and population and that sort of thing, but yeah, the cultural differences have to be huge.
Person to person, but speaking to people who grew up in the GDR, you might notice that some of them have a different taste in shows, movies, and music, for example, because they grew up with different media. A lot of them speak Russian because they all had to learn Russian in school, and they didn't really learn a lot of English, so the English skills, especially of older people in
I remember when I was in Berlin, and I think it's still there. I don't think they've taken it down. I think they had to keep it up. Right near the Brandenburg Gate, there's like a tribute to the Soviet soldiers, I think, from World War II. And I took a picture of it. It's still there. I believe it's still there. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Those regions might be a little behind those in Western Germany. And some people also miss the good old times of the GDR, and there's a term called Ostalgie, which could be translated with Eastalgia in English. It's a mix of East and nostalgia. It might be hard to understand how you could ever miss a totalitarian system like the GDR.
Actually, like I said, it was what I just said earlier. If you grew up in that and you were used to that, I don't care if you liked it or not, it was just how it was. Okay, maybe you didn't yearn to go to the West. Maybe you were, content because this is how things are like. Okay, I can live with this. Okay, this is what all I've known, and all of a sudden, it just changes.
But these people have a shared memory based on a country that doesn't exist anymore. The cars, the way that things looked, the organizations they remember stuff at the time, none of that exists anymore. So some people miss that. As I said, there is so much more to say, and I'm sure many of you guys can share personal stories and observations. I would love to read some of that in the comments below. I myself was born after the reunification, and my family has always lived in West Germany, so I can't really share any personal experiences here, but overall, you could say that the divide between old and new states in Germany is definitely a topic that still comes up, but Germany is one unified country today, and if you don't know what you're looking for, you'd probably never even notice that it used to be 2 different countries. I hope this answers the question for you guys. Make sure to check out the other Ask a German videos as as well if you haven't seen those yet. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for free, activate the notification bell, and if you want to, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and support me on Patreon and buymeacoffee.com. Thank you so much for watching,
and this was an excellent video. Like I said, it's just a small video about the difference between East and West Germany. And like I said, if you didn't grow up during the Cold War, this may not be something that you can understand. But it's something that it was always, if you go back and look at movies from the 1980s, 70s, 80s, maybe you can go to the 60s and 50s as well. I guess probably go back there. It's the Cold War, and everybody was you have no nukes. People talk about Soviet Union, the United States going to war, nuclear war. The Iron Curtain and all that stuff, godless communism. It was just a different time. And it just changed so drastically. And the one thing that, from our standpoint, from the American standpoint, from the United States, it was like, oh, they're going to be happy now. Now they're going to everything is perfect now that they're now in a free market society. They're going to love it. But you don't really, it doesn't really work like that. There are people who probably still miss that, who probably don't look at it in the same way. And that's something that I didn't really consider until really probably about 20, 25 years ago. When it happened, it didn't dawn on me until about 95, and I started watching a little bit more videos. But like I said, there's an excellent Berlin Wall documentary. If I can find it on YouTube, I'll put the link in the description below. But and if I don't, then I fail. Okay, but this is a great video from Feely from Germany. I really enjoyed this one. Please click thanks. For this video, Feely. Please click like, share, and subscribe for her, as well as like, share, and subscribe for Scott Dover's Interesting World. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.